Hi, and welcome to episode 200 of the Ecom at One podcast. Today's guest is John Thornton. You may know him as the chief copywriter for Surreal, the protein-based cereal company who brought Barry Scott back as the guy responsible for the blue versus green debate for innocent drinks. He's the master of making boring products interesting. Find out how you can add humor to humanize your marketing to engage your audience. Enjoy this exclusive live podcast.
Well, I think we'll have one more. Huge round of applause for John Thornton from Surreal.
Oh, thank you.
So, obviously, you stepped through a lot of different campaigns, a lot of different things there, and I think what I'm really interested to know, what's the most outlandish, craziest idea that you've done, and what results did you get with it?
So I did do one. So after that family photo shoot I showed, it did really well, and so I was like, "What's like if something does well, I try to find a way to push it further." So I was like, "Obviously, get your tops off." So I persuaded our founders to do a photo shoot just in their pants, and I bought them some like tighty whities and sort of wrote Surreal on it as if it was like Calvin Klein, but like handwritten and shit. And I was basically like, well, it's like, and because we were launching a banana cereal, so the headline was going to be like Dulce and banana, look like an underwear shoot. Just about persuaded them, and I never like to promise that something will do like massive numbers, because whenever I promise massive numbers, it flops, and then something you're expecting to do fuck all does great. But here I was like, this will definitely work. So I've been there maybe 6 months. We're in a photo studio, they're in their pants, having all these pictures, they're absolutely hating it. And then we put it live, and it got like 20 likes, which is quite awkward. But so what we did then, my theory is that LinkedIn didn't like seeing their nipples, as in the platform or the people, not sure. But basically, if something works, I'll try and find ways to do it again. If something doesn't work and we've put like time, effort, money into it, sort of try desperately to find a way to make it work. And I think sometimes just like changing almost like the way into it can help. So then the next day we did a post, and instead of just leading with the image, we put like a warning contains graphic nudity, and then sort of talked through the little story of how we'd guaranteed this I promised our bosses this would work, and it hadn't worked.
Yeah.
And then that did much better. So kind of
So less nipple, more copy.
Yeah, and I did black bar their nipples on that one in case like the platform didn't like it and stuff. Yeah.
So it must be quite interesting sitting in your sort of team's office or on your calls. I've got this idea. Mm-hmm. How do you get these ideas signed off? Because I think some of the guys in the audience, I think, well, what could we do in our business? How far can we push it maybe with our brands? How do you sort of stack it up to get, obviously you've been there quite a while now, so obviously in the early days it's probably a bit more challenging.
I think because like literally day one they'd been taking the piss out of themselves, and it worked. They were kind of like on board from day one. And with other people, and like Innocent, we didn't have much sign-off process. It was basically trust that I could post more or less what I wanted, and I'd run it by my boss if I wasn't sure. But occasionally I would have to get sign off, and sort of what I try to do, it's like the baked bean smoothie. I had to get sign off, I think, because it was like part of a bigger campaign or whatever. Sort of how I presented it was I try and break it down into ideas that have already been done and worked elsewhere. Basically, all it's like seeing people that just sort of want proof. And so I found Anne Bessie's had teamed up with Northern Monk to do a roast dinner beer, and so that was like weird food combination, weird brand combination. That performed super well. And then when I was like a teenager, there was this Facebook group called like Beans in Places Beans Shouldn't Be, and it had sort of 100,000 members. Every post, it'd be like a wall clock filled with beans or a Croc shoe filled with beans, and every post would get thousands and thousands of likes. So that was me being like, beans work. So I was like, weird food works, beans works. This is just weird food and beans. So it's sort of all that stuff works, so this should work. And it did work pretty well. So that's kind of the dream sort of process.
To sort of show the powers that be, that's sort of the idea. in a fashion somewhere else and then adapt it to your brand environment.
Yeah. Basically, it's like in some guise it has been done before and it worked and nothing went wrong kind of thing.
So obviously quite on the wire, some of the things maybe, depending on your perspective. How do you deal with maybe some of the negative side of social media that comes through? Because I think that's what worries a lot of, obviously different brand sort of ethics, different brand guidelines, obviously you're probably at the far end compared with maybe a lot of people sat in the room, maybe not so with a few as well, but dealing with those negative social media, obviously you've got millions of views on, but obviously amongst those comments, there's obviously a lot of mixed opinion probably on certain campaigns. How do you deal with
yeah, some people fucking hate them. Like Innocence movies, some people find super annoying. Surreal, some people find super annoying. Some campaigns people don't like. I think for starters, it's figuring out who doesn't like it, why they don't like it, and if you actually care that they don't like it.
Yeah.
I see some people, or like sometimes senior people in a business you're in will see like one negative comment and be like, oh God. Especially like the classic is always people like in COVID when it was like Christmas, we did this sort of parody. This is Innocent. We did this parody children's book about like keeping Santa safe, but it was just for social. It was very like not adult themed like genitals, but adult themed like we're talking about the furlough scheme and all of this stuff. So it was directed at adults but dressed up as kids. And I did absolutely fine for like 3 days. Didn't do massive numbers, but did completely reasonably. Our audience liked it. And then on like day 3, it landed in some weird far-right circle of Twitter. And all these COVID deniers came out and said we were pushing government propaganda and like more bizarre stuff than that. It got real extreme, like full on. And they were just like, these people, nutcases, don't care that we've pissed them off. Actually a good thing. I think I try and decide whether I will win in the sort of court of public opinion. And so there we were like, let's just double down. So we wrote like a piss take apology, being like, oh, so sorry that we've upset you with these rhyming couplets and things like that. We put like, we're going to boycott ourselves. And then we just started retweeting all the like unhinged abuse we were getting and just like, I think what the kids call clapping back. Which when you often with the negative stuff you just kind of have to suck it up, but every now and then you get a chance to like put them down. It's worth taking just for your own mental state of being. Yes. And so then that did like 6 times better than it had been doing, 6 times better than the Christmas campaign we'd done the year before. Even then though, we like, because then you get all these comments like, oh, I'm never going to buy your product again, but they literally say product. They never are like, oh, I buy this smoothie and I'm not going to buy it anymore. They don't buy them to begin with. There was one guy who was like, oh, I'm in the supermarket right now and I've hidden £200 worth of your stock. And we treated that like, imagine seeing this bloke walking around the supermarket weighed down with juice. Like, it's not happening. Right. But like some of the senior people see that and they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done this. And you have to be like, no. That like, they don't have profile pictures. They don't have their real names. You can scroll through and see what they're posted. Like, so that's when it's like illegitimate negative pushback. When it's more legitimate, it's kind of the case by case. Sometimes you can be like, oh, okay, we've missed a mark here. Let's delete that really quickly. And I think I've learned it's better to, if you're quickly seeing that, it's not worth being like, oh, maybe in an hour, loads of people will find it happy. Because actually the people seeing it first are probably mainly your fans. Yeah. The people who like you most. So if they're not liking it, I'd get it down sooner rather than later.
So have a look at the profile that's saying what they're saying.
Yeah, and if they actually seem like genuine.
Yeah, that resonates with a couple of people in the room actually that I know that have had some interesting comments in certain industries.
Yeah, I think almost the worst case is where a post is doing really well, but some people don't like it, and then you're like, oh,
can I go for it?
You're doing numbers.
You're like pouncing, ready to go.
But they sort of maybe have a point as well. I don't like that one.
Now, you might be looking for an SEO boost, a down-to-earth digital PR campaign to share your story, or maybe just some straightforward technical help to amp up your performance. Now, that's where Ecom Now comes in. A partner that's all about making things easier for your online store. Our services cover everything from creating professional content for your e-commerce categories to refining your product descriptions. Now, whether you're just starting out or have been in it for a while, we're here to deliver real, impactful results that add to your bottom line without unnecessary commitments. You can order one-off or multiple projects with a quick turnaround. Simply choose what you need.
So I think change the direction for a bit. I think collaborations, you know, obviously you mentioned quite a few there, but I think in terms of like the stores in the room, you know, sort of step us through sort of how you approach collaborations, you know, the sort of getting the right collaboration, then the initial discussion to the commercial side, maybe if you can, or, you know, how then you sort of do a deal to then work and actually agree that collaboration with a brand that align with another brand and the benefits it's had for your business.
Yeah, so a lot of the collabs I showed were like purely social, just about awareness. So they're relatively straightforward, and basically how we approach them. I think if you reach out to a brand and you're like, can we talk about doing a collab? Unless you're massive, they're going to be like, nah. Whereas if you reach out and you say, we've had an idea, then they'll be more likely to get on a call. Yeah. And then if you show them that idea, like if you've already had it, you show them it. Yeah. That gives them something quite easy to yes or no. And especially if it's just social and they're like, it doesn't then take much effort from you. You just made content for them for a day. As long as they like it, they'll be quite happy. And that's how we found quite a lot of them. And then once you've done one, you then put it in the deck for the next one. You're like, we did something similar. These were results. It worked really well. That helps persuade them. And so then it's kind of, you sort of build momentum a bit that way. So yeah, we kind of idea first, then the conversation second. The more, and yeah, like I was saying, they don't have to sort of make fully strategic sense as long as it's going to just perform. The more commercial ones, we did a flavour collab with Candy Kittens. Yeah. And a flavour collab with Gymshark. Yeah. Those ones a bit more sort of logical and commercial, and I don't fully understand the sort of back end side of that. But it's still, I think when we were talking to them, we made sure to have like lots of ideas to show the wider campaign. Again, so it's almost, so they can picture as much of it as possible. Because these things do take a lot of time and effort, and so you want to sort of, you don't want them to be anyone to be thinking about that. You want them to be thinking like, oh yeah, this does make sense for us. We can see what we get out of it. Yeah. It won't be that much more time and effort.
Is it quite a long process with the bigger brands like that?
I think it's sort of like how long's a piece of string. Like the Gymshark one, we'd actually already kind of got a flavour that was ready to go, whilst we were having almost a separate conversation with them, and it just sort of came up. And so then it's basically we need to turn around. If we turn around packaging in a campaign in 3 weeks, then everything else falls into place. So that, basically took 3 weeks, but only because the flavour was sort of already there.
Okay, so we, as a family, nibbed to Sainsbury's the other day, then picked up these 3 packs.
Thank you very much.
And there was a comment about the price, and the premium price. But I think that's a really good thing to chat about, because I think pricing in e-commerce, it's a huge element that I think a lot of stores miss. The price go to the bottom of the price, possibly, and the price war, and then it leads to all sorts of problems. But obviously, it's a premium brand that's aiming for more of a higher price point. How important is the branding, the copy, the messaging been to be able to achieve those price points?
Yeah, so pricing, maybe not my strong area, but I can parrot what my boss tells me. I guess, around the copy and the brand points of view, like, it has to, if you're charging a premium, you need to look and feel premium. Yeah. You're sort of, when you see those, if you're shopping on Vinted and the jeans are sort of, they're fine, but they're covered in stains, I want them to be £2, basically. I'm not paying 50 quid if they're like that. But yeah, I guess kind of how we try and position the price. We are a bit more expensive than like cornflakes, but we also have like completely different nutritionals to cornflakes. Yeah. You're sort of you're not buying us as an alternative to cornflakes. Yeah, because we're like high protein, low sugar, giving you a full spiel here.
It's right here, isn't it? 8% protein, 8% carbs,
13 grams protein. That's more than percent corn, Richard. But yeah, so you basically, if you compare it to a bowl of cornflakes purely on price, they're cheaper. But
Yeah.
if you compare the servings in that to a protein bar, we work out considerably cheaper than like 6 protein bars.
And that's very much your messaging branding.
Yeah.
You know, so you're not selling a cereal, you're selling, potentially part of it is you're selling an alternative.
Yeah, well, it's a protein product which is in the shape and form of cereal, basically.
Yeah.
Is sort of a bit to try and get across.
Okay.
Probably not explained that very well.
That's fine.
My boss
I think,
would do a better job.
We're going to come to the audience in about 7 or 8 minutes, so a couple of questions we'll have time for at the end. So any questions, guys? So I think, obviously, you've stepped through a lot of campaigns. You know, there's some very, how would I say it? You know, crazy, outlandish, brilliant ideas. But I think a lot of it does come down to, you know, cracking copywriting and ideas. You know, where do you get your ideas from? Where do you sort of knowing the probably 50 or so stores that are sitting in the room, you know, and they're sort of trying to come up with ideas for campaigns, social, you know, obviously all the different platforms we'll touch on in a moment. But, you know, where do you get your ideas? And, you know, and how important has copy been, and any tips for the guys around the copy side?
Yeah, I think the idea is more important than the copy.
Yeah.
Often, sometimes the ideas are like copy led, but something like I don't know, the baked bean thing, the copy is like less important there. So I think the firstly we try and just, both at Innocent and Surreal, just do a lot, take a lot of shots, because a lot of them are going to miss.
Yeah.
And so you just up your chance of something hitting if you're taking more shots. As long as you're not, I suppose, taking shots too quickly, but you're not putting any effort into the shot. But yeah, I guess each process is slightly different. But the ideal process is almost that baked bean smoothie, where we were literally like, okay, here are all the potential things we could talk about for this new smoothie. There's oats, cinnamon, fibre, vitamins, breakfast. There's been positioned as a breakfast smoothie, and like oats, cinnamon, fibre, vitamins are not interesting. And you try and sort of peel off them, and you like what relates to fibre, what relates to vitamins, you still don't get to anything interesting. Whereas breakfast, you quite quickly get to like baked beans. And that's almost like the dream process, where you just sort of spider diagram off until you find something you can link back. I think a lot of the ideas almost are just finding a link you weren't expecting. So like all our collabs, it's almost like here's the link between deodorant and cereal that you'd never realised.
So you're sitting there with a notepad, like linked.
Almost, yeah. Like the deodorant one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The deodorant one, my colleague Ruth had actually reached out to them, said, "Can we do a collab? We've got an idea." They said, "Yeah, we're sure. We'd love to hear it." And then she was like, "Okay, cool. They're up for a chat. Now we need the idea before the meeting." And so that was literally like everything we can try to connect between the two. And then the copy, I think the sort of my process, if something's not coming to mind easily, I'm normally like overthinking. And so it's just like, what is the simplest way to say this?
Yes.
And then normally that will be the best way, or you can just add a little joke on at the end. So it would just be like the most straightforward way, then a touch of personality. They can kind of almost be separate.
I find it sort of the most amazing skill, copywriting and sort of ideas, turning ideas into copy. Some of the guys that we work with and a couple of the guys in our team, I just find it such a skill that I think most e-com stores sort of leave, you know, and it's just quite mundane copy quite often, and just that effort put into the brand and the copy, I think is, you know, something that is just missed so many times. No, I'm really intrigued. Going back to Barry Scott, how did you get Barry? How did you get him to agree to do that?
Yeah, so that one, I can't even remember where the idea came from. I think it was partly, so at Innocent, we'd made some adverts with Duncan from Blue, which have done really well for us. And there's certain like celebrities and people who are in this sweet spot where loads of people know them, but they're maybe later on in their careers, and so basically their fears maybe come down versus the height of their career, but their actual like how recognisable they are still exists. So trying to find those people, well, like at Innocent, we sponsored like a League Two football club, called Forest Green, because they're the world's first vegan football club. So they got like they're basically like a challenger brand, but in football.
Yeah.
As they have that like oversized reach for their sort of their price. So you can sponsor football, you can get on FIFA, things like that. Well, I mean, we weren't on FIFA, we were on a shirt, which is what I wanted, but whatever. You can kind of get that. So then we were kind of trying to think of, I guess trying to when you're trying to, that advert where we're trying to land a lot of messages, but in an entertaining way, it's sort of landed on the easiest way to do that is just to parody other adverts, because you're used to then being hit by messages, but you just like, you basically dot in between a joke, a message, a joke, a message, to keep them sort of watching. And then it was like, okay, we're sort of parodying that kind of style. Is there anyone famous for that style? It was like, oh, there's Barry Scott adverts. So we looked him up. He's an actor called Neil Burgess. And then we were like, is he going to be up for this? Is he not? Looked on sort of his social, and he was doing sort of his own little Barry parodies. So like, okay, maybe he will be. And then we worked with a video production agency called Noosa, who were great. And they reached out and had all the conversations. Basically, Neil just sort of quite liked the script and was up for it. He said he'd been reached out to about other stuff kind of along those lines, but maybe didn't like the project so much.
Wasn't right.
But that one he was up for, and then like on the day he was like...
So that goes back to you preparing the idea.
Yeah.
And when you start an initial conversation, you've got a pitch rather than just an email, flat no probably, or a not much to go at. You've got a full...
Yeah, they almost know exactly what they are getting themselves into or are turning down.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John. We're going to do a few questions from the crowd. So, anybody got a question right here? I think it's Emma at the front there, near the front.
Hello, Emma from Stokes Tea and Coffee. Thank you for this amazing day and for bringing such calibre as John into the room. Really grateful.
Thank you.
My question is to John around the whole concept of like the personality and putting that out there. That's so exciting and powerful. But how do you manage that on the other side of it? So are you literally like monitoring your feed and speaking back to it hour by hour? And how do you split your personality like into the marketing team to make sure they are reflective if they're the people that are responding on your behalf?
Yeah, so especially at Innocent, there'd be me sort of monitoring some, and then our customer service team, we had 3 customer service people, and they would sort of, one of them would be on social sort of at all times. It'd be like 2-ish people's full-time job, me and someone else. And in terms of that personality, we'd pretty like Innocent, the tone of voice guide is like 40 pages long, so it's super detailed. I get sent on like freelance projects I've done, sometimes you get sent the guide, and the tone of voice is half a page in the wider brand guidelines, and it's almost just a list of we say this word, not that word, which doesn't cover like, personality is more like the words are less important, it's more like the idea behind it. But so yeah, there was a really detailed guide to begin with of how you talk, how we do, and then we used to have meetings once a month with all the people who would write words in the business, where we'd pick out a random selection of stuff we'd posted that month, and we'd just kind of go through and be like, was this on brand? Was it not? Could it be better? What could we have done differently? Which is super useful for everyone, as that helped us all sort of sound very similar. And then at Surreal, similarly, I kind of focus on one channel, someone else focuses on another channel, someone focuses on customer service. I think on customer service we're a bit straighter, and people are upset, you don't want to be trying your little jokes so much. But you do still want it to feel personalised. On that one, just a quick thing we noticed from those meetings at Innocent was if you, in like those emails, if your first line to them feels very personal and like directly responds to what they said, and your last line does, in the middle you can put that sort of generic template answer, and the whole email still feels very personal. So that was like a great learning. But yeah, we sort of, I don't know, there's just a lot of examples floating around. I think if each of you see sort of what it's meant to sound like, you sort of absorb it. And we probably should have a setup where, like at Innocent, where we review it and point at people. But I think we're got quite a lot of other stuff to do. So it's maybe not, that full consistency isn't as much as a priority. or like our emails are quite salesy. They're I sort of give them a once over to sort of take off the absolute like bits that are furthest from a brand, but sort of in a business our size have to pick your battles a bit more. So I sort of, there's so much stuff which if I was at Innocent where it was like much more focused, I'd be like saying no to it and polishing it. But here it's sort of like the big stuff can get the polish, some of the smaller stuff he'll have
so it
to
depends a bit.
Yeah.
Is that answer okay, Emma?
That's brilliant. Thank you.
I know it is.
And I think Joe at the front.
Hey mate, this might be representative of my own usage habits rather than like your strategy. But I've noticed that you seem to do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, maybe even LinkedIn first, and that doesn't seem like a natural sort of bedfellow for like selling a brand and selling a product and stuff like that. So I'm curious if that's true, and if so, how you ended up in that place, and just sort of speak about LinkedIn generally as a tactic for social media, because that feels really interesting.
Yeah, sure. So basically when I was at Innocent, we would have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram as our main channels, and the HR team ran the LinkedIn. But because of whatever time it was, 2018, 2019, over years it sort of, they'd got 100,000 followers, but the content was garbage. And it was my boss who was like, we're a social media team, we should be running that. And we literally, at first, we would just take a Facebook post, wouldn't change it at all. If it had 1,000 likes on Facebook, it would get 4,000 likes on LinkedIn. I think just because it stood out and was a bit different. And then if we tweaked it and tailored it to be a bit more like businessy, then it would do even better. Then we had all these arguments with the HR team and the senior team that we were being too silly on LinkedIn. And I actually got banned from a company LinkedIn account, which is a great day. But so sort of took that knowledge then when I was starting at Surreal. And it's sort of, cause then when I joined Surreal in 2022-ish, I think, by that point, starting on Facebook and starting on Twitter was super difficult, especially not putting money behind it. It's like it's a real grind to grow followers. I think on those platforms, people have kind of shifted away from following brands so much. There's some like legacy brands which still get it, but as a new one, it's a lot harder. So then we just kind of carried it on. And sort of from my point of view, I mean, it's got like the same number of users as Instagram. So there's a lot of people on it. From my point of view of just running it, the sort of content you can run, I can treat it like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, because it's caption photo, which is sort of my strength. I can't really do the sort of vertical video, TikTok reel stuff. But yes, I could kind of use a similar-ish content and it would work there, and that stuff wouldn't work on Facebook, Twitter anymore. And also, when you're starting out, the algorithm is quite friendly. Like how it works is, I'm not an expert on this, but basically, so for the first 6 months, we would post off of our personal pages and just tag Surreal and send people to it kind of thing. And basically, if your friend likes the post, their followers will see it. And so then if one of their followers sees it, likes it, and their followers will see it. So it spreads very naturally. It's quite easy, even with a small following, to sort of, your friends are probably going to like it, to like then get a bit of spread. And so then if it's actually got like wider appeal, it will go far without you having that big following. So that was sort of, that was why it started working, and because it worked, we carried it on. I think it also helps that on a lot of the older channels, most brands are now trying to do the funny, silly stuff. Like you look at when Instagram launched Threads, every brand was on there messing about from day one, which is kind of great to see on the one hand, but it means if someone sees 100 posts, if yours is the 100th, they've seen 99 silly posts. Whereas on LinkedIn, there's some more serious stuff. So it's just easier to stand out, really.
Brilliant. It is a tricky one, isn't it, LinkedIn, I think, for brands. But we'll maybe talk about that a bit more. A last question. I can see a hand here. I think Simon.
Hi, yeah, Simon, as I said. I run a consultancy. I work with agencies and small businesses, and something that you mentioned in your reel and here is the brand partnerships piece. And I think for small retailers and e-com stores, it's really hard to get to your audiences. And I've always said brand partnerships, if done well, they can be really effective to tap into an audience, be where they are kind of thing. So what would be your advice to small businesses to get these brand partnerships off the ground? Because obviously it's one thing to actually have a conversation with a business, right? You want to make sure they're culturally aligned. Like I know like Rory at Gymbox loves the like messing about with stuff, doesn't he, as well, right? So, but if you've got a certain tone of voice that's quite a bit provocative and a bit different, that's another layer as well. So like how do you decide who you want to partner with? Is there like a sort of a scorecard? Like what's your approach? That would be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think there's not a written scorecard, but there's probably like a mental one we have. We basically, often the idea, it won't be for like this. Sometimes the idea will be, okay, this brand, what could we do with them? Sometimes it'll be almost like this kind of idea needs this product, this category. Who in that category might say yes to it? And so then we'll look at whose vibe is closest to our vibe, who is like happy being a bit more out there. And then like, because then it's like less of a sort of shock to their system. So normally we'll go after like the challenger brands in a space rather than, there was one we did with an internet company recently called Cuckoo, basically because we're never going to get through 20 layers of sign off at Virgin Media or BT or something like that. Also, just to your point on collabs, what I should have mentioned earlier, the piece they do, like the awareness stuff does great, but also the sort of the bit you can't measure, but which we found amazing, is like the credibility you get. Sort of people see, oh, if that brand has worked with them, they must be okay, and then it makes it easier for the next brand. But also things like retailers, buyers, we're now in Sainsbury's, like you mentioned, and that a lot of that, what really helped was the collab we did with Candy Kittens, who were already in retailers, and like the Sainsbury's buyer reached out to us after that, and you basically never get inbounds from retailers. So that kind of credibility piece is like worth its weight in gold.
It's like social proofing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Go with them, then it's valuable. Cool.
Thanks, Simon. I think going back to the room, in terms of collaborations, partnerships, there's a lot of brands in the room, and I know our team will do our best to connect you, but make sure you have some great conversations at lunchtime. Right, we're going to bring this to a close, but I'm going to finish with a quick fire round.
Nice.
So we'll kick off with, if your brand had a theme song, what would it be?
Probably like sugar, sugar, do, 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 do. But we'd put like no at the start, so it'd be like no sugar, sugar.
Love it. What's been the most outrageous marketing piece you've ever done? Yeah, maybe the Top Plus stuff. Yeah.
One we never went through with at Innocent, we used to, the little hats they put on the smoothies? Sometimes men would tweet us pictures of them wearing the little hats, not on their heads. And so we did. Me and my boss sort of started coming up with a campaign around that, and then we decided maybe we shouldn't sort of bring penises into our...
Bit of a line there, isn't there? Yeah. So TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, which one can't you live without?
I would happily get rid of all of them. Made my life a lot easier. My favourite would be like Twitter about 10 years ago. That was good then.
Yeah. Not now.
Yeah. Not so much.
Yeah. What's one productivity hack you would share with the audience about organising your day and your work?
I am atrocious for that. At Innocent, I never once successfully wrote like a monthly content calendar. 95% of our content was written on the train on the way in. So not my special suit. That
okay. We'll move on. One more collaboration. What would it be if you could collaborate with any brand in the world? What would it be?
Sex toy company.
The what? Sorry.
A sex toy company.
Okay.
Just free toys in the cereal.
Love it.
Perfect.
Love it. Yeah, little action man in there. Yeah. What's the weirdest thing you've ever used to promote your business so far? Obviously, you mentioned baked beans.
Yeah, or my boss's nipples. Or we did a thing on London Bridge once where someone stood at one end of London Bridge, because basically in the morning everyone arrives at London Bridge station and walks north over a bridge. So it's probably one of the few places where you can guarantee foot traffic only going in one direction, more or less. So we stood at the start of the bridge with a sign saying free spoons, just handed out free spoons. And then I was stood at the most people walk straight past that. That's just fucking weird. Some people like take it out of curiosity, and I was stood at the other end of the bridge with a sign saying like free cereal if you took a spoon or something, and I gave him a box of cereal. So you had this like, because London Bridge is quite long, so you had this like setup where they don't realise is a setup, and then 3 minutes later there's a payoff. So that was quite fun.
Spoon.
Yeah,
as your takeaway, should have took a spoon. Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure. Is there anything you could share as a final couple of questions coming that you could share that's coming for Surreal on the sort of roadmap that you know about that maybe you could give us an insight into?
Launching with a new retailer very soon. It's the posh one.
What does that begin with again?
W. Ends in Atros. Probably allowed to say that's probably fine. A Christmas ad we've not decided whether we'll run yet or not. We didn't run it last year.
You're on the wire.
Yeah. And I don't know. Should probably plan some more stuff.
Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure. I like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a book to recommend to our audience and listeners?
I don't really read. I just got on Twitter. I have struggled through. I mean, it's a good book. I'm just not got the attention span, but it's called Born to Run. It's all about barefoot running, which I didn't think I'd be into, but maybe I'll get.
You've not actually took the shoes off yet. You're thinking about that?
Not yet. I will probably stick, but go full East London and go barefoot. Yeah.
Well, good luck with that.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. Round of applause for John and everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Wow, 200 episodes. It's hard to believe we've come this far. When I first started this podcast, I had no idea how much I would learn, how many incredible conversations I would have, and how much inspiration I would take from so many guests. To the guests who've shared their wisdom, their stories, thank you. Each of you have left a lasting mark on this journey. I am so grateful for the opportunity to learn from you. The podcast has been a platform for growth, not only for myself, but for every listener tuning in. It's given me the chance to dive deep into the topics that truly matter, to challenge my own thinking, and to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to do this. This milestone isn't just about hitting a number. It's about the community that we've built, the knowledge we've shared, and the inspiration we've all gained. As we celebrate this 200th episode, I just wanted to say thank you to the guests, to the listeners, and everyone who's been part of this incredible journey. Thank you for believing in this vision, for sharing in the experience, and for helping us all grow along the way.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast, so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.